That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, we are now having to deal with something that we haven't dealt with since last season, and this is injuries. No, we had the Deebo Samuel injury a couple months ago, but outside of that, we really have not had to come to the fact that a lot of these guys that we're stashing, that we are excited for 2020, are not even going to get their chance. They're going to get injured, whether that's through circumstance, whether that's just through being unlucky. It does not necessarily matter. The fact is that some of these guys are not going to be available for our 2020 season, and we're already seeing some drop, and I think we should cover them, talk about the impacts both from a dynasty perspective and what we should expect in 2020. And I know that a couple of these guys aren't necessarily even going to be on the radar for some of y'all. I have a wide range of listeners. Some of y'all are really intense and play in 35, 40-man roster leagues, which is exactly what I do. I love going deep and where there's pretty much nothing on the waiver wire. And you have to go out there and you have to be strong-willed with your convictions. And you have to go out there and go get those guys that really not many people know about. And one of these guys is Josh Oliver. Josh Oliver was someone I was actually extremely excited about buying this offseason. He may be one of my most owned players. I have him on the back end of my rosters everywhere. And I was excited for his 2020 prospects, especially with the lack of target competition in Jacksonville in 2020. They pretty much have DJ Chark, rookie Laviska Shenault, injury-prone Tyler Eifert, and outside of that, they had nothing else to go to in terms of throwing the football. So I thought Josh Oliver was going to be a guy that could sneakily sneak into that tight end 2 range for his sophomore season, and then possibly load up as a high-end tight end 2, low-end tight end 1 for the 2021 season. Yet we see him suffer a broken foot. I think this pretty much gets him off the radar completely for 2020. And in 2021, it's going to be hard to go out there and project Josh Oliver, who was a third-round rookie in last year's NFL draft, 3 years into his NFL career, where he has not really been able to even get on the field to show if he has any talent whatsoever. So outside the Josh Oliver injury, what really hurt to see, and y'all know I've been a big proponent of this guy on this channel. I know a lot of y'all had shares of him in your dynasty leagues, and I know that based on all the DMs I got after the injury, but Jalen Hurd, torn ACL, going to be out for the year, obviously. And this is just something that we hate to see. Jalen Hurd looked like he was going to line up and actually get some opportunity with the Deebo Samuel injury. He was a guy that coming out of high school was a top player in the country. He actually went to play running back at Tennessee, then transferred over to Baylor to play wide receiver. He got taken higher in the NFL draft last offseason than anybody expected, and he balled out in the preseason, his rookie season. And I was really excited to see what he was going to be able to provide this San Francisco 49ers offense in the absence of Deebo Samuel. But we see that he gets injured, and now we just have to try to adjust our ranks. And obviously, Jalen Hurd is not going to be able to provide anything in 2020. And now with this injury, I think it really diminishes his long-term outlook in Dynasty as well, because similar to Josh Oliver, what are we going to be able to project for Jalen Hurd in 2021 if he's going to be a year 3 player, never really has gotten on the field for a regular season football game, and he's going to be playing behind George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk, all who have significantly more team investment into them than Jalen Hurd has, and I think we can all agree that they all have more talent than Jalen Hurd has. So it's going to be hard to imagine that he's ever going to be able to provide dynasty value as the wide receiver 4 in terms of targets on that team. And we know that this is a team that's going to want to run the ball before they throw it. Jalen Hurd, this is a guy that I was extremely excited about, but we can't continue to give him a roster spot and give hope for him. If you can stash him on the IR, I think that's a great thing to do. But if you play in a shallow dynasty league, a 22-man roster league, and you're going to be able to you're going to have to go out there and make cuts for this COVID season. We're going to see a lot of waiver wire action. I'm not going to be too upset about cutting Jalen Hurd just because we can go out there and realize it's a great player, an exciting player, but his options of becoming fantasy relevant anytime soon are extremely dim. Now, a guy that's not injured, and some positive news actually, is Preston Williams. Preston Williams was completely cleared for football activity, and I think this is significant because we didn't necessarily know if he was going to be ready for the beginning of the 2020 NFL season. And after we see Jalen Hurd and Albert Wilson opt out of the 2020 season, there are a ton of targets to be had in Miami. They have Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, and that's it. So it's something that we should really take notice if Preston Williams is already getting cleared for football activity. I think he's a guy that should be good to go week 1, and I think we can actually go out there and confidently draft him in 2020 fantasy football leagues because he looks like he's going to be the number 2 option in Miami. And if you're the number 2 option on any passing offense and you have nobody else behind you in terms of depth, you should be able to expect consistent targets week to week. And Preston Williams in his rookie season showed that he was actually able to provide a ton of production with the targets that he received. And I know that a lot of people are down on him based on the lack of draft capital that he got last offseason, but I made a video about it a couple months ago, I think. And I think we can actually go out there and dismiss the lack of draft capital that we see with Preston Williams just due to him falling in the NFL draft with off-the-field concerns. Maybe if he didn't have that off-the-field pass, we would have actually seen him be a day 2 wide receiver drafted. And if that's the case, I guarantee you a ton of more people are a lot more excited about Preston Williams in 2020 and beyond. And I mean, if we are talking about Preston Williams beyond 2020, I think it's a major point that the Miami Dolphins didn't go out there and draft anybody in a loaded 2020 wide receiver draft class. And I think this says that they are confident in building around Devontae Parker and Preston Williams for the future. So Preston Williams can go out here and continue to improve on what he did his rookie season in 2020. I think he's a guy that we can actually build our dynasty teams around, and you should be excited if you have him, especially if you got him later in your startup draft this offseason. Now, a guy that I completely whiffed on last offseason. I told you all to go out there and buy him low, at least what I perceived his low to be, and he's just fallen off a cliff since then. Sonny Michelle, the Patriots go out there and indicate that Sonny Michelle's not going to be ready for the start of the season. I've been saying this for a couple months now, actually. I've been telling y'all to go buy Damien Harris. I'm hoping that y'all listened. I have Damien Harris on a ton of my dynasty teams, and I didn't draft him a single time last offseason. That was one call that I made correct, and I think that we're going to continue to see Damien Harris and his value rise to where it was at a hilarious low at the beginning of this offseason. So Sonny Michelle, he's going to be out at the beginning of the season. I don't think we should run out there and go pick up Lamar Miller just based on, I don't think Lamar Miller is going to be ready either. I expect him to start on the PUP. So if we're looking at this backfield, we see Rex Burkhead, who's one of the oldest running backs in the NFL by a wide margin at this point. We see James White, who's strictly a pass-catching running back. And we see Damien Harris, who we know is maybe not going to be elite at anything a running back can do, but he is capable of doing anything a running back can do. And that's what you look for in fantasy football. You want to see a guy that has decent size to where he can carry a 3-down workload. He has somewhat athletic ability, and we know that Damien Harris has that based on what he provided at Alabama. And he has the pass-catching ability. So Damien Harris may not have a super high ceiling, but I think he's a guy that, especially if you're building around wide receivers on your dynasty team, you can go out there and you can draft him at the later rounds, and he can provide you RB2 upside, which is something that's going to be extremely valuable with where you can get him in fantasy drafts. Now, the last guy I'm going to talk about is a wide receiver that is a rookie and that was projected to be one of these guys that everyone was saying he's going to be the number 1 rookie wide receiver based on there's nobody else in his offense. This is Denzel Mims. Denzel Mims goes out there and pulls a hamstring, and we know that that is an injury that is so unclear with the timetable for recovery, and if he's going to be out the entire training camp session and he's a rookie, I think it's going to be a wide receiver that's going to take a long time to get on the field and a long time to make an impact. And we know that Denzel Mims is an older rookie wide receiver, so I think now might actually be the time to sell Denzel Mims. I know his value is a little bit further down than what most people expect, But I think we're going to be looking at Denzel Mims, who's going to be like a 23-year-old, 24-year-old this time next offseason. And I doubt he's going to be able to flash much in his rookie year. And if that's the case, I don't think many people are going to be excited about Denzel Mims, especially with the situation in New York not being the best. So thanks, guys. Really hope y'all enjoyed the video. Really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if you did, make sure you go down there, make sure you drop a like and subscribe.